When people hear the video game developing company Capcom, many will first think of their Resident Evil series. The Resident Evil games have become immensely popular that movies, TV shows, and even graphic novels have been made based off of them. With nearly 30 main games and spin-offs, the Resident Evil games have dominated the action horror and survival horror genres since their first game's release in 1996. And with a new generation of fans coming to love the games, Capcom began remaking their earlier games for those newer fans to enjoy. It started in 2002 when Capcom released the remake for their first game. Many felt it was underwhelming and the game gained little attention. Capcom, however, surprised everyone in 2019 when they released the remake for Resident Evil 2. This remake was a massive success, and made some argue that it even surpassed the original, and set a precedent for how video games should be remade. A short year later, the Resident Evil 3 remake would be released, and while many still enjoyed it, it was not as massively enjoyed as the previous remake, as many felt the game was too short, which is a valid criticism, as compared to Resident Evil 2 remake's runtime of an average 12 hours, and even the original Resident Evil 3, which was nearly 20 hours long, its remake was a mere 6 hours. With a slight disappointment of the third game, and after Capcom announced that they would be remaking their fourth installment, many were hesitant and wary, as the fourth game is debated to be the best in the series. However, when the remake of Resident Evil 4 was released this year in 2023, players again massively enjoyed the game, and debates have been made that it has surpassed its original counterpart. With the massive success of the remakes, fans of the series have started to speculate on whether or not a remake of the fifth game would happen. Speculation exists not because fans or developers are bored of playing or making the remakes, but because of the controversy behind the fifth game. Resident Evil 5, which was released in 2009, is considered a controversial game because it has players play as a white male American protagonist go to a rural village in a fictional African country, where the vast majority of the enemies you fight are Africans. Because of this, some critics and journalists have called the game racist and offensive. Capcom was surprised about the amount of backlash they received when they gave audiences a look into the game, and made a statement saying, "In terms of the reaction, we are in the business of entertainment. We didn't set out to make a racist game or political statement. We did feel there was a misunderstanding about the initial trailer," said Jun Takuchi, a producer of the game. Despite the initial controversy of the game, Resident Evil 5 sold nearly 15 million copies, the most sold Resident Evil game of its time. A trend that has started with the new remakes is that the remakes are selling far more copies than the originals, a trend that may continue if Capcom releases a remake of Resident Evil 5. If they do release a remake, it will need to have some adjustments. While I am personally on the side that Resident Evil 5 wasn't meant to be offensive, I can understand the argument from the other side that a stereotypical rural village wasn't the right setting. But another thing Capcom is known for doing in their remakes is amending their mistakes. For example, in the earlier games, Capcom was known to sexualize their female characters, and while some elements of sexualization still exist in the remade games, they are far less prominent. I think that Capcom has a chance here to make those critics happy by adjusting the story a little bit in the potential remake. Having the setting in a more urban town or city would already be a significant improvement. A majority of fans are calling for a remake of the fifth game. Resident Evil 5 brought many new fans into the franchise, and was their first Resident Evil game. I think that a remake should be done, but there should also be changes made to it to make it more socially acceptable.